Hey, if you're enjoying these writing lessons and want to practice your writing, then get even more writing lessons and printable writing practice sheets inside our learning program. So sign up for a free lifetime account right now. It takes less than 30 seconds. Just click the link in the description to sign up and start learning in seconds.
Hi, welcome to Introduction to Hebrew. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Edith.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Hebrew writing.
In Hebrew, we use two different scripts, one for print and one for handwriting.
Most people learn the printed script first, and even learn to write their letters this way.
These are called otiyot dfus.
Printed letters are rarely used for handwriting other than in elementary school, so most people learn script letters very quickly after learning the printed letters.
Script letters are called otiyot ktav.
One thing you don't have to worry about in Hebrew is capital letters. There's only one case for letters in Hebrew. Here's some general information about Hebrew letters. Hebrew is read right to left, the opposite of English. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and they are all consonants. You may be thinking, but what about vowels, right?
These dots are placed underneath or next to the letter in order to let you know what vowel comes after the consonant. Here is the word for dog, kelev, without Nikud. And here it is with Nikud. Let's do the same with the word for boy, yeled. Without Nikud, it's... And with Nikud, it looks like this.
Those are both with vowels. Let's look at one with some other vowels.
How about the word for mountains, harim? Here it is with Nikud. This has both an a vowel and an e vowel.
Although this is very useful when you're learning Hebrew, don't get used to it. Most things in Hebrew are written without the vowel dots.
The reason we usually don't use Nikud when writing Hebrew is that we don't really need it.
That's right. Hebrew is very systematic and structured. It's very methodical and logical. Words are created according to patterns, and this helps you figure out what vowels are used in the words.
You already know the word for dog, which is kelev. Next time you see this word, you don't need to see the vowels because you know they are there. You'll have to rely on what you've learned.
There are some letters in Hebrew that will indicate what vowels are present. These letters are technically consonants, but can behave like vowels.
Alef, Hey, Vav, Yud, Ayin. For example, the letter Hey often ends a word with an A or an E sound, like in the words Laila, for night, and Boneh, the masculine singular form for build.
There are 5 letters that change form when they're at the end of a word, but they're still the same letter.
Chaf, Chaf sofit. Mem, Mem sofit. Nun, Nun sofit. Pei, Pei sofit. Tsadi, Tsadi sofit. Here's an example of how this works. The letter mem looks like this in the beginning or middle of the word, mem, like in the word for stage, bama. When it comes in the end, it looks like this, mem, like in the word for the sea, yam.
3 letters can have 2 different sounds depending on whether they are in a stressed position or not.
Bet is both b and v. In the word bama, or stage, it makes a b sound, and in the word for dog, or kelev, it makes a v sound. Chaf is both k and ch. For this example, we can use the word for dog again. In kelev, this letter makes a k sound. And in the word for correct, which is nchon, it makes a ch sound. This letter also has a special end form that looks like this. When it comes at the end of the word, like chiyuch, the word for smile, it's always pronounced ch. Pei is both p and f. In the word parpar, or butterfly, this letter is pronounced with a p sound. In the word for book, or sefer, it's pronounced with a f sound.
There are also 6 pairs of letters that at one point in history had different sounds, but today sound very similar.
Alef and Ayin, Bet and Vav, Khet and Chaf, Tet and Taf, Kaf and Kuf, Samekh and Sin. For example, the words telephone, meaning telephone, and tshuva, meaning answer, begin with 2 different letters of the alphabet, but you would never know that unless you saw them written.
One interesting aspect of the Hebrew alphabet is the letters also represent numbers.
Alef represents the number 1. Bet represents the number 2, and so on. When you get to the number 10, or Yud, we add the first 9 letters to it to represent 11 through 19.
The letters can be combined to create numbers into the hundreds and thousands. You can find the first 10 letters used as numbers in many day-to-day contexts.
For instance, Sunday is often referred to as Yom Alef, or Day 1. The first semester in university is called Semester Alef.
Okay, let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that there are 2 different scripts used to write Hebrew, printed script and written script. Hebrew is written and read from right to left. All 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are consonants. There are also vowels in Hebrew, and these are written with a dot system. Some letters in Hebrew cover 2 sounds, and other sounds are covered by 2 letters. And lastly, the Hebrew alphabet can also be used to represent numbers.
Shalom, אני Anna. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet Bekalei Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. Over the next 20 lessons, you'll learn everything there is to know about reading and writing Hebrew. By the end, you'll even be able to read some portions of the Hebrew Bible. Are you ready? So let's start. בואו נתחיל. Hebrew has only one alphabet of 22 letters, so it's super easy. Once you know these, a few variations and a simple vowel system, you will be ready to read one of the most ancient languages in the world. As you may know, the Hebrew writing system is written from right to left. At first, this may seem intimidating or confusing, but you'll get the hang of it in no time. Let's start with the first letter, Alef. What sound does Alef make? In Hebrew, the name of each letter starts with the sound you use to pronounce it, which means the sound of Alef is A. It is handwritten like this. Now, in Hebrew, there are always 2 ways to write a letter: the written way, which is used in everyday handwriting, and the print way, which you will see in books and newspapers, on signs, and so forth. This is the written way. The print version looks like this. When Israeli kids first learn how to write, they use this print typewriting. It's useful, and as you'll see later, very easy to learn both versions of every letter. Let's do it again. Here's the written form. And here's the print form. You can now write your first letter in Hebrew. Good, let's move on. The second character is Bet. The sound of Bet is B, and it looks like this. Pay attention to the dot. It has to be in the middle. The print version is like this. If you leave out the dot, Bet becomes Vet. The sound of Vet is V, but we don't count Vet as a separate letter in the alphabet. So far, you've studied 2 letters of the Hebrew Alef Bet, and you've learned 3 sounds. Want to write them once again? Let's do it! Okay, here is Alef. This is handwritten. Alef in print. And now bet, handwritten. And bet in print. Then vet, handwritten. Vet in print style. Did you know you can already write a word in Hebrew? This is Abba. Abba in Hebrew means father. It is the first word every Israeli baby says. These are the simplest phonetic sounds. Try it out. Abba in handwriting. And now the print style. Abba. Great job! In this lesson, you learned the first two letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef, Bet. You also practice your first word, in both print and writing styles. Before we move on to the next lesson, I want to introduce the Hebrew vowel system. Among 22 Hebrew letters, there are 5 vowels, one of which we learned in this lesson. But beside those 5, there is another vowel system called Nikud. Nikud are a series of dots or points that are used to indicate vowel sounds connected to consonants. Once you have more experience reading Hebrew, you may not see these symbols so often in native texts. But if you can master them when you start learning Hebrew, it will make learning Hebrew much faster and easier. The Nikud take the form of dots, lines, and combinations of the two, and are written in, under, on top, or beside consonant letters. Sound complicated? Don't worry, we'll take it slowly, and by the end of this series, they will seem easy. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Have you been writing as you watch? Hope so. There is no better way to master the alphabet quickly than to write them yourself. I also recommend that you make flashcards for each letter and study them whenever you get a chance. Do you know how to write dag, the word for fish, in Hebrew? It will definitely come in handy when you read a menu in Israel. And you learn that and much more in the next lesson. Lehitraot! Shalom, ani Yana. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet Bekale Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last lesson, we learned the first 2 letters of the Alef Bet. Do you remember them? In this lesson, we'll move on to the next couple of letters and the first Nikud symbol. So let's start. בואו נתחיל. The third letter of the Alef Bet is Gimel. The sound of Gimel is G. Let's first see how to write it by hand. Gimel in handwriting. And in print it looks like this. Gimel. They look quite different, don't they? But the good news is that you already can write another Hebrew word, Gag. This means roof in handwriting. Gag. And in print it looks like this. Gag. Here you may be a little confused. If you were to see this word written, you might want to read it as gug. There is no vowel sound. In Hebrew, the vowels are often not written. You would know that this word is pronounced gag because it has been taught to you before. And this is why the Nikud is so important. The Nikud shows learners of the Hebrew language what vowel sound is used in words, but don't rely on them too much. As you get more experienced with Hebrew, you should be able to remember how to read words, even if the Nikud is not attached. Now it's time to introduce to you the first Nikud. Remember, Nikud are small points and lines that are placed in, under, on top, or beside consonants. The first one has the sound A, just like Alef. This is kamatz, and it looks like this. and it's always written right under the consonant letter. Let's write roof a couple more times while pronouncing its sound, A. So for example, gag in handwriting looks like this. Gag. And in print, gag. Also, the word Abba has kamats under two of its letters. Abba. And in print version, Abba. So now you can read and write two words in Hebrew using the full vowel system. You can adjust the sound of the letter Gimel by writing a comma right here. Now it is read J, as in the name George. First the Gimel, and then the comma on the upper left side. And in print it looks like this. So now let's move to the fourth letter, Dalet, with the sound of D. Dalet. That's it, just one curve for the handwriting. And Dalet in print looks like this. Dalet. So let's make another word with the letter Gimel and Dalet. Here, dag means fish. This will come in very handy whenever you are in a restaurant. Let's write it. Da, g. And now in print. Da, g. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Don't get lost in studying and forget the real world. Find Hebrew letters around you. Don't see any alphabet letters around you? Go to HebrewPod101.com and check out the alphabet transcripts for every lesson dialogue. You may not be able to read them all yet, but you can get a feel of how the Hebrew letters are used in real life. Do you know what ahava means? It's the most romantic word in Hebrew. You will be able to write and read this and much more in the next lesson. See you then. Lehitraot. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet Bekalei Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last lesson, we learned the third and fourth Hebrew letters, Gimel and Dalet. Do you remember how to write fish? And what about roof? In this lesson, we will learn how to write the word for love in Hebrew. Are you ready? So let's start. בואו נתחיל. The fifth Hebrew letter is Hey. Hey sound is Ha, but it can also sound like Ah. You will see how it changes in a second. Let's first write it in handwriting. Hey. The print version is very similar. Hey. Make sure to keep Hey curved while handwriting, but use sharp angles in print. So, as I mentioned, Hey can sound like both Ha and Ah. The word Ahava uses it in both ways. When Hey appears in the end of the word, it will always sound as Ah. Ahava is love in Hebrew. Let's try to write it down. Ah, pronounced Ha. Remember the sound here is V, so we don't need a dot of bet. Pronounce Ah. Let's do it once more in handwriting. Ahava. Ahava. Isn't it a beautiful word with a beautiful curved shape? Now let's do it in print. A, ha, va. So if you want to add the full Nikud for this word, we need to use a new Nikud symbol, patach. Just like kamatz from last lesson, patach has the sound of A. Now remember, when you write in modern Hebrew, you don't need to use the Nikud system. It is there mostly for you to read, especially when learning new vocabulary, or if you want to study the Hebrew Bible. Now let's spell Ahava with the full Nikud. Ahava. A-ha-va. Ahava. Here's the print version. Here you saw how the letter Hey can sound in two different ways. So you already know 5 Hebrew letters and several words. Don't forget to practice the characters in both handwriting and print. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Doesn't Hey from this lesson sound like Hey in English? When you say hello to your friends? That's exactly the sound for the Hebrew letter Hey. Now you can think of the letter Hey when saying hello to your friends and memorize it better. In the next lesson, we will see how one word can be pronounced in 3 different ways in Hebrew. It may sound confusing, but remember, you'll have the Nikud to help you. See you next time. להתראות. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet בקלי קלות. The fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last lesson, we learned to write the most important word in Hebrew, Ahava, the word for love. Do you remember the Nikud for Ahava? If you're not feeling confident about it, review the last lesson before continuing on from here. In this lesson, we will learn 1 new Hebrew letter and 3 more Nikud. Are you ready? So let's start. בואו נתחיל. The 6th letter is Vav. The sound of Vav is V, or O, or U, and it's written like this. That's it. Vav has only 1 stroke from top to the bottom. The print version is the same for Vav, with only a small difference. In Hebrew, Vav is not only the name of the character, it's also a word by itself. It means a hook. Doesn't Vav look like a hook? You can write this word like this. It's just the letter Vav 2 times. If you want to add Nikud, it will look like this. Now we move on to the next Nikud symbol, Hirik, with the sound I, like in C. It's just 1 dot under the letter, I. Now you can write a very common name, one that belongs to the second and perhaps most famous king of the ancient kingdom of Israel, David. It's written with 2 Dalet and 1 Vav. The Nikud here is important, otherwise it can have different pronunciation and meaning. Let's write this word. David. And now in print. David. The next Nikud for this lesson is Shuruk, with the sound U. This is how you make Vav sound like U. For example, if we take the same letters from David and instead of Hirik we add Shuruk, it will be Dud, electric water heater. Perhaps now you can appreciate the power of learning the Nikud when you're first studying Hebrew. Let's write this word. Dud. And now in print. Dud. Notice how Shuruk goes to the left of the Vav. Seem complicated? Don't worry, we will review them all at the end of this lesson. But not before we will learn the last Nikud for today. Holam maleh, with the sound of O. This is how you make Vav sound like O. Let's write this. D, O, D. Dod. And now in print. dod. Notice that Holam Maleh appears above the vav. Now, Shuruk and Holam Maleh are only written with the letter vav and not with any other letter. Hirik, however, will appear below other letters. Now let's see all the last three examples together and make sense of them. First, we had David, Dud, and Dod. Now let's have a short quiz. I'll show you the Nikud symbol next to a letter and you have to pronounce its sound. Ready? A, U, I, O, A. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Since you will not see any Nikud in modern readings in Israel, you will have to guess by the context of the sentence which pronunciation and meaning it has. It all comes with the experience of studying Hebrew vocabulary. Another tip is when writing the letter Vav, it is important to keep the length of the stroke inside the frame. Otherwise, it becomes a different letter. But that's for later. So in this lesson, we studied the letter Vav and three Nikud in Hebrew: Hirik, Shuruk, and Holam Maleh. In the next lesson, we will learn two more Hebrew letters, Zayin and Khet. See you then! Bye! Shalom, אני Anna. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet Bekalei Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last lesson, we learned the sixth Hebrew letter Vav and three new Nikud. Do you remember how to write David and uncle? What about electric water heater? In this lesson, we will learn two new Hebrew letters. So let's move on with the seventh letter Zayin. The sound is Z. Let's write it in handwriting first. Does it look familiar? You might be reminded of the third letter Gimel in handwriting. Yes, you are right. They are the mirror images of each other. But don't get confused between them. Gimel faces this way. Zayin faces this way. Okay, how about the print version? Fortunately, this one will be hard to confuse with the print version of Gimel. Even though they are pretty different in print, make sure you don't write Zayin and Vav in too similar a way. Let's see the difference. Vav, Zayin. Zvuv is a fly in Hebrew. Zvuv. And in print, Zvuv. You can easily remember this word since the fly makes this sound. Zvz. Let's move on. If you write Zayin with a comma on the left side, it will sound like zh, as in the word journal or collage. First you write Zayin and then add the comma on the upper left side. In print, usually the letter J is used for foreign words like jaquette, a jacket, journal, a journal, and so forth. Now we move on to the eighth letter, Khet. This has the sound of Ch, and it is written like this. For the handwriting, keep the corners round. And in print, Khet. Almost the same, right? Always the print version will have sharper corners than the handwriting version. Ach is a brother in Hebrew. Ach. The pronunciation is important. Try to pronounce it more glottally from your throat. Chava is a farm. Chava. Here the handwriting and the print versions are almost the same. Let's write them. Chava. In print, Chava. Now it's time for Yana's insights. When writing Hebrew, Alef Bet always start from the top, both in hand and print writing. In this lesson, we studied two new Hebrew letters, Zayin and Khet, with a variation of Je. Did you know that you have already mastered a third of the complete Hebrew Alef Bet and the Nikud system? Good job! But how do you write good in Hebrew? In the next lesson, we will learn this and two new letters plus one Nikud. See you then. Lehitra. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet Bekalei Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last lesson, we learned the letters Zayin and Khet. In this lesson, we will continue with the next two letters and learn another Nikud. Are you ready? בואו נתחיל. The ninth letter of the Alef Bet is Tet. It has the sound of T. Let's write it. The handwriting of Tet is... This letter is a little unusual, in that you need to start from the bottom up. And in print, Tet. If you round the corners of the print version, it will be just like the handwriting one. Tov is good in Hebrew, in the masculine form. T, O, V. Tov. And in print, Tov. In the feminine, you write Tova. And in print, Tova. Now, let's move on to the 10th letter, Yod, which has a Y sound. It is probably the simplest letter. Yod, just like a little comma on the upper right side of the frame. And in print version, Yod, almost the same, just with a little angle. Yad is hand in Hebrew. Yad. And in print, Yad. Now we've completed 10 letters of the Alef Bet. You're almost halfway through. Can you believe it? Before finishing up, let's take a look at another Nikud. Sheva. Sheva has no sound. It is a silent vowel. It just keeps the original sound of the consonant. Like in Ach. Ach is a brother. Ach. And in print version, Ach. We will see more examples of Sheva in the next lessons. We are ready to move beyond words and write a phrase. Ach Tov is good brother in Hebrew. The noun comes first and then the adjective. And in print, Ach Tov. Nice job. Soon you'll be able to write whole sentences. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Before starting the next lesson, try to write all the letters from Alef to Yod several times in a row, while loudly pronouncing each letter. In the next lesson, we will learn the 11th letter, Kaf, and after that review half the Alef Bet. How many can you remember? See you in the next lesson. להתראות! Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet Bekalei Kalut, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last lesson, we finished up the first 10 Hebrew letters of the Alef Bet, and 6 Nikud symbols. Can you remember how to write good brother in Hebrew? I'm sure you can do it. Now let's move on to the 11th letter, Kaf. The sound of Kaf is K. Let's write it. Kaf. Just half a circle to the right, starting from the upper left side and going down. The print is the same but with sharp corners. Kaf. Kaf actually is only pronounced like K when it has a dot inside. Just like Bet only has the B sound when it has this dot. Without the dot, it sounds like Ch. Chaf. A good example is the word Kochav. Kochav, which means a star. K, O, Cha, V. Kochav. And in print version, Kochav. Be careful though, the letter Chaf takes a different shape when it is written at the end of the word. It looks like this. Chaf Sofit. The print is quite similar. Chaf Sofit. Now let's have a short review of the first 11 letters, the first half of the alphabet. Be ready with a pen and a paper. I'll say the letter out loud, starting from Alef, and give you a second to write it down, first in handwriting and then in print style. Then I will write it myself, first the handwriting version and then the print. Are you ready? Let's go! Alef. Alef, Bet. Bet, Gimel. Gimel, Dalet. Dalet, Hey. Hey, Vav. Vav, Zayin. Zayin, Khet. Khet, Tet. Tet, Yod. Yod and Kaf. Kaf. Good job. Now it's time for Yana's insights. How is your Alef Bet learning going? If you're having a tough time with some characters, how about checking them out on the Alef Bet chart in HebrewPod101.com's Learning Center. Don't just get stuck in one learning method. Mix it up for the best results. In this lesson, we studied the letter Kaf with its variations and did a review of the last 11 Alef Bet letters. Next lesson, we will continue with 2 more letters. Do you know what Lama means? So why not join me in the next lesson? See you then. Bye! Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet בקלי קלות. the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. Last lesson we reached the halfway point of the Hebrew Aleph Bet and did a review of what you've learned so far. Did you practice them all? So I guess you're ready for the next two letters that we will learn in this lesson. They are Lamed with the sound of L and the letter Mem with an M sound. So let's start writing. Lamed looks different in hand and print writing. So pay attention and remember to pronounce the letter while writing. Lamed. Lamed. Lamed looks like a loop, doesn't it? The word loop in Hebrew actually starts with Lamed. Lula'a. Can you read this word without Nikud? Lula'a. Loop. Easy to remember, right? In print, it looks like this. So how loop will look in print? Yeled is a boy in Hebrew. Yeled. And in print version? Yeled. If you wondered how we make the sound of E in Yeled, you're paying very good attention. There is a new Nikud there called Segol, and it looks like this. You say it with the sound E. So let's write Yeled with proper Nikud. Yeled. And in print version? Yeled. Another example using Segol is Kelev. Kelev is a dog. And in print? Kelev. Could you read Kelev without the Nikud there at all? Kelev. Great. The next letter is Mem, and it has an M sound. In handwriting, Mem looks like this. Mem. And in print, Mem. Mem changes when at the end of the word, just like in the previous lesson, Chaf. It looks like this. Mem Sofit. And in print, Mem Sofit. You might say it looks like a square. Maim is water in Hebrew. Here you can see both variations of Mem. Maim. And in print version? Maim. So how would you read this word? This is Melech. Melech means a king in Hebrew. Melech. Me. Le. Ch. Here is Yana's insight. Have you been checking out the Aleph Bet transcripts for HebrewPod101.com's lessons? I bet you can read a lot more now than you could after lesson 2. Go back and browse the Aleph Bet transcripts for a lesson or two, and you'll be amazed at how far you've come. Just think a little more and you'll understand the whole thing. This lesson will learn the letters Lamed and Mem, and the Nikud Segol with the sound of E. In the next lesson we will have a little quiz, so practice your Aleph Bet and the Nikud. See you then. להתראות. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Aleph Bet בקלי קלות. The fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bet. In the last lesson we covered the 12th and 13th Hebrew letters and our 7th Nikud. Lesson 9 is dedicated to reviewing the letters we've learned so far. Let's have a little quiz and refresh our memory with Hebrew vocabulary. Are you ready with pen and paper? In the first part of the quiz, I will pick 10 words we encountered in the last 8 lessons. It is your job to read it out loud. Then, I will read the word. In the next section, I will say a word out loud and give you a second to write it down, both in handwriting and in print versions. Then, I will write the word down. So let's start. כלב, חווה, טוב, לולאה, דוד, אבא, גג, אהבה, דוד, כוכב. How did it go? Now let's do the writing test. גג, גג, טוב, טוב, דוד, דוד, כוכב, כוכב, כלב, כלב, דוד, דוד, לולאה, לולאה, אהבה, אהבה, אבא, אבא, חווה, חווה, So how many did you get right? I'm sure it is 100%. Now it's time for Yana's insights. The best way to learn Hebrew vocabulary and the Nikud is to pick up a few children's books at your local store in Israel or ask your friends to send them to you from Israel. It is very good for Nikud practice and for learning to recognize words, because in adult books and in daily life in Israel, you will not see any Nikud around you, and you'll have to be quick to guess their meaning from context. So in this lesson, we had a little quiz for the Hebrew vocabulary. In the next lesson, we will continue to the 14th and 15th letters, Nun and Samekh. Can you already guess what sound they make? See you in the next lesson. להתראות! Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet בקלי קלות. The fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last lesson, we reviewed all the Hebrew letters we've learned so far with a little quiz. Can you write fly in Hebrew? What about star? I'm sure you can do it easily by now. In this lesson, we will learn 2 more letters. So let's start. The 14th letter in the Hebrew Alef Bet is Nun. It has a N sound. This is how you write it. That's it. The print is the same with a sharper corner. Also, Nun takes a different form when it appears at the end of the word. The print is the same with a little side angle. Pay attention to make the final Nun, or Nun Sofit, longer than the frame. And don't confuse Nun with Vav. Their difference is only in the length of the stroke. So Nekhed is a grandson, and Nechda is a granddaughter. Nekhed. Ne, Che, D. Nechda. Ne, Ch, Da. And in print, Nekhed. Ne, Che, D. Nechda, Ne, Ch, Da. And Even is a stone. E, Ve, N. And in print version, E, Ve, N. So let's move on to the next letter, Samekh, which has a S sound. It looks like a circle. In print, it's a bit different. Sus is a horse in Hebrew. It's a funny looking word, isn't it? In print, sus looks like this. Sus tov is a good horse. Guess what? You're ready for a whole sentence in Hebrew now. סליחה, כמה זה עולה? Excuse me, how much is this? סליחה, כמה זה עולה? And in print, Now it's time for Yana's insights. Samekh is not the only letter in Hebrew with a s sound. We will learn the other in a future lesson. Just like we saw already, some Hebrew letters share the same sound, like Khet and Haf, which both make a ch sound. It might seem complicated, but just like in English, you need to learn the proper spelling for each word. We have finished the 10th lesson of HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet Bekalei Kalut. We are halfway through and have only 7 more letters and few more Nikud to go. See you next time. להתראות. Shalom, אני Anna. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's עברית בקלי קלות, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last 10 lessons, we have covered 15 Hebrew letters and 8 Nikud symbols. We have only 7 more letters and a few Nikud before we complete the full series of Hebrew Alef Bet. Aren't you excited? So let's go straight to the 16th letter Ayin with the sound of A. Originally, Ayin was pronounced glottally, from the throat. But in modern Hebrew, it is rare to find speakers who are still pronouncing it in that way. So now basically it is another A sound to the list. And this is how you write it. And in print version, Avodah in Hebrew is work. A, vo, da. And in print, it looks like this. אני הולך לעבודה. I go to work. As a male speaker, as a female speaker. Want to try it in print? Have you noticed a new Nikud in this sentence? You are paying very good attention, because there is one. It is Sere, with the sound of E. Do you remember what is the other Nikud with the same sound? Sere looks like this. Nes, a miracle, is spelled with Sere. But you only need to recognize the sound for this word. So don't worry if you don't remember exactly which Nikud it should be, Sere or Segol. And in print, Nes Gadol is a big miracle. And in print version, now it's time for Yana's insights. Do you have a minute? Try to write all the alphabet you've learned so far in one sitting. At the beginning it might be hard, but it will help you to find out which characters are still difficult to remember. In the next lesson, we will learn letter number 17 and its variations. So don't forget to practice till then. See you later. להתראות. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet בקלי קלות, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last lesson, we learned the letter Ayin and the Nikud Sere. In this lesson, we will continue to the next Hebrew letter Pei, with the sound of P. Let's write it down. Pei in handwriting is written from the outside to the inside, and in print, from the inside to the outside. Pay attention to the dot. It makes the sound P. Without the dot, it becomes Fei, with the sound F. Even though it's a different sound, we don't count Fei as a separate letter of the Alef Bet, just like Bet, Vet, and Kaf, Chaf. Pil is an elephant. And in print it looks like this. And Afuna is a bin. And in print, now let's see how the Nikud changes the pronunciation and meaning of the same word. Sefer, Siper, Sapar. Looks the same. So why are they read differently? Let's look at the same words with Nikud. Sefer is a book. Siper is he told. And Sapar is a barber. The only way to guess the right reading is by understanding the context. So practice your Hebrew reading daily. Pei also looks different at the end of the word. It is called Pei Sofit and looks like this. You start it like Lamed and end with a curve facing down. And in print, please keep the stroke longer than the frame. Sof is an end. And in print version, זה הסוף להיום. It's the end for today. Can you write it in print? While doing it, pronounce each letter and the vowels. Now it's time for Yana's insights. Have you been practicing the Alef Bet with flashcards? What about the Nikud? Take the flashcards with you everywhere. And when you got a minute waiting for the bus or in line, take a look and pronounce each letter out loud. It might sound weird to the people around you, but that's the best practice. In the next lesson, we will go through the 18th letter, Tsadi. Do you know that Tsadi also has a meaning by itself? I will see you in the next lesson. להתראות. Shalom, אני יאנה. Welcome to HebrewPod101.com's Alef Bet בקלי קלות, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Hebrew alphabet, the Alef Bet. In the last lesson, we covered the 17th Hebrew letter Pei and its variations. In this lesson, we will continue to the 18th letter Tsadi, which has a few variations as well. So let's start. בואו נתחיל. The letter Tsadi has the sound of ts and looks like this. It looks like the number 3, doesn't it? And in print, it looks different. Start from the top and add the little stroke last. The letter Tsadi, if pronounced while putting the emphasis in the last syllable, Tzaddik means righteous person or even saint. It is written like this. And in print, now you can remember the letter easier. Tzipor is a bird. And in print, can you pronounce these two? Mivtza, mitzvah. Mivtza is a discount. You will see this word a lot in shops and markets in Israel. In print, it looks like this. And mitzvah is a good deed, a virtue, or a precept. And in print, tzaddik also looks different when written at the end of the word, and it looks like this. Tzaddik sofit. It looks almost like pei sofit, but be careful not to confuse them. In tzaddik sofit, the last loop goes up, and in pei sofit, down. Tzaddik sofit, pei sofit. In print, tzaddik sofit looks like this. Bots is mud in Hebrew. And in print, tzaddik changes its sound when written with an apostrophe on top. It has the sound of ch, like in church. And in print, for example, chance is borrowed from English. It means chance. In print, also, chat is just like the English chat. In print, it looks like this. Richrach is a zipper in Hebrew. It kind of makes the sound of the action, doesn't it? In print, rich, rach. Now it's time for Yana's insights. There are many onomatopoeia words in Hebrew. We've seen zvuv and richrach already. Bakbuk is a bottle. Rishrush is a rustle sound or a murmur. Tiftef is the sound of falling water, like rain. Tziltzel is the sound of a bell ringing, etc. In this lesson, we've seen the variations of the letter tzaddik. In the next lesson, we will study 2 more characters and 1 nikud. So see you then, lehitraot!
Want to speed up your language learning? Take your very first lesson with us. You'll start speaking in minutes and master real conversations. Sign up for your free lifetime account. Just click the link in the description.